All right, let's get our Facebook folks in here and we can start the show. We are running late because of me. That's okay. We're hanging out. We're doing it here. We got the wheels spinning and 1 and 2. All right, welcome in, welcome in. It is 6:24 Mountain Time. Time for an episode of Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, joined by Carl Dumler. Carl, thanks for waiting. Kind of come and go. My wife's flying around the country the rest of this month. So today I was like, oh, we're gonna end a little bit early, and I can go pick you up. Nope, her flight got in like an hour early, and she's like, hey, please pick me up right now. Okay, and then traffic of Seattle at rush hour. So we're here, and we're hanging out. But yeah, man, how are you doing?
I'm good. That never happens of a flight getting in early. I'm not sure I've ever heard of that before, so that's great. Gets her home a little bit earlier for you, and glad you guys made it back to your place. But no, I'm good. We're kind of going through some crazy weather, which is just March. I had to wear a coat to church on Sunday morning because it was snowing, and by the time we got out, it was like 55 degrees, and everything was gone. And today we're supposed to be possibly having tornadoes. So if you see me like duck and cover, you know why I'm gone. It's supposed to be mostly east of us, but all that crazy thing. So it's a good time had by all, and I'm happy to be here because it means spring is coming, green grass is out, and the draft is here.
Yeah, no April Fools on here today that I know of. So other than us, you and I, but we can be your guys' April Fool. But let's say hello to everybody in here. Michael Davis, what's going up? Good to see you. I see Dylan Von Arks is in here too. Good, always good to see him. We got Pro 16K, Doug. 50% chance to trade back. All depends on how the big boys fall. Anyways, it should be fun. Talking about the Bill Barnwell, one of the probably more celebrated writers in the NFL sphere for ESPN, does really good work. And he did trades for 32 teams that he thinks should happen. And Broncos actually a trade back. I know everybody's been, who is it? Chad Reuter has been mocking a lot of potential trades up for the Broncos, but a trade back, that's a little bit more music to my ears, but we'll get into it. Chase Wellner in the house. Great to see. We got stars coming in. Thank you so much. I should bring up back the air horn for stars like I had back in the day on my phone. Just blow out everybody's speakers. Good evening, Nick and Carl on Building the Broncos. Go Bo Broncos. Go Michael. Hope you're doing well down there in Arizona. And maybe we can even talk a little bit of your cats as well. Another piece by ESPN. I think it was Seth Walder. The best prospect fits, top 20 prospect fits. And Tedro McMillan. Broncos prospect fit. Interesting. It'd be cool to see. William in here. Good to see you, William Catalano. Good to see Shiloh. Hello, everyone. Looking forward to a great show. As much as Scott has missed, it's also great to have DVA floating around with more shows. Yeah, it's good to have Scott's still around. You can check out the Falcon stuff as well with Scott, but Scott's in the background right now. I was going to say I could flash him. That would be something else entirely, but we could put him on the screen. No, I'm not going to bring him up on the screen with those fingers. But all peace and love for everybody out there for sure. We got
it was the two fingers, right?
It was two fingers. I don't know if it's on the same hand. MBLE test prep. I'm here to party. Man, I need to party as well. $2. It says if the board falls like Monday's mock, trade back. I don't even remember exactly how it fell. We had Kenneth Grant available still. We still had, actually Eric and I projected a mock, so we did all the picks. So I should really probably remember how it worked. But that's a trade back is definitely an option, and it's also something that I think we'll get into Bill Barnwell's what he advocates for, and then we will force a trade for the Broncos to trade back, like Barnwell suggested, and see what it looks like via the PFF simulator. So we'll see. Should be fun and interesting. Paul's in the house. Great to see Ernie Mays. Go Broncos only, of course. Thank you, Shiloh, so much for the stars. Also, again, Pearl Heater is in the house. Hi to you, Pearl. Good to see you. Roy Osborne. Crazy. He said it's crazy weather where he's at as well. Days are getting longer is all I know, and it's been the marine layer, rain in the morning, but sun's out now, and thank God the days are getting longer. I'll tell you, man, putting the baby down and then walking the dog in darkness, like constantly. Like I finally walked in with the sun still up the other day after the baby was down. I felt my soul leave my body in a good way.
Yeah, there's something about just that sunlight. I mean, obviously the vitamin D coming in it means something to you, but just getting through the winter months, it's a long time. And so even before the show, I was thinking, man, I got to get over there, get some studying done before we do the show. And my daughter goes, "Can I play soccer with you, Dad?" I was like, "Heck yeah, we can." She's on my soccer team. We're going to be champions, of course, this year. But yeah, no, it was just good. Spent 30 minutes just kicking the ball around, and it was just good to be out in the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gosh, it's good to get out there, and feels like the sun's rising in Broncos country, as well as we obviously had the owners meeting, some fun stuff there. Big takeaway from the owners meeting. Obviously, the 49ers put on a full court press to bring back Dre Greenlaw. They flew out to his home in Dallas, and he rebuffed their advances, and he's coming out to Denver, joining former teammate DJ Jones and his best friend, Talanoa Hufanga. Man, it really feels good to have the Broncos not only obviously competitive with these things, but like now when it's a 50-50 proposition, players are picking Denver. And it felt like for a long time since the post-Peyton Manning era, unless we were, paying more, we weren't winning those like, okay, there's multiple options there. I'm going to go with the other team. Taxes in Jacksonville, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Denver was picked for this one. So maybe a really good sign for how people are viewing this Broncos team.
Yeah, it even sounds like they upped their offer to above what the Broncos were willing to pay. Not saying the Broncos wouldn't have upped their offer if then before he came back from the 49ers, but the fact that, like I said, was willing to pick here, sees that there is a possible championship opportunity with the Broncos, and that he can lead this defense. They've got a good unit around him. It's all good signs for Broncos for sure. And Evan Ingram, the same thing. I mean, not that he had other bidding teams or anything like that. Oh, he did have other bidding teams. Chargers were trying to get him. Mm-hmm. And he said, "Nope, Denver's where I want to be." The new quarterback we just brought in, his agent was talking like he had 4 teams with offers to him. And he said, I want the Broncos. I think that's my best fit. I think that's going to be a great place for me. And this is not only the winning culture, but this is the Sean Payton, where players are seeing like he's getting a lot out of players that other people didn't think had this in them. Before last season, what was it? Everybody was saying Broncos have a bottom 3 roster. And then all of a sudden they have, the guy that wins defensive player of the year. They have another guy that was, in the betting odds was top 5 for defensive player of the year. And so it's just kind of crazy when you look at all of that and see the growth of the team. And like I said, just seeing all these extra players come to the Broncos. So I'm excited about it. And definitely Broncos country, you should be getting more excited about how the rest of the league is viewing the Broncos right now. Not just fans, actual NFL players. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good position to be in. Also, we're in a good position right now. Troy Boer coming in here says, finally get to listen at night. Ooh. If you get that reference, you're a SpongeBob fan. Thanks for the show. Which 3 to 4 players could realistically fall that would make you not want to trade back? Well, Troy, this is a great question. And man, maybe we should have you come up with some of the topics of the show. This would be a really fun one to do. But man, good one. I will have to add the asterisk, the caveat, that it always depends on what the offer is. There's no such thing, especially picking at 20, that the pick is not on the table at all. So like if a team's offering a 2026 first round pick, I'm probably all ears. It would have to be like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter to not trade back at that point. So which players sitting there falling would make me not want to trade back? I think if Ashton Genty fell, Tyler Warren, Ted McMillan, that might be it. Out of the guy, I don't think Graham's gonna fall. Blah blah blah. Like those are the 3 that feel like, and even Genty's probably not fallen. Probably not Warren either. Ted's the one who's like, it'd be hard for me to move off that spot because there's not many X receivers in this class. Cortland Sutton's contract situation, like there's a lot of wide receiver 2s, FZ slot, whatever you want to categorize them as. I think Ted can do all of that while still playing X and give you size and an off ramp to Cortland Sutton, who's probably going to make 25 to 27 million APY at age 30. So Ted's the one I think that's realistic that I'd have a hard time trading down from.
So did his comments the other day change your opinion of him at all?
That happened when I think that interview happened when he was like 18 years old, like a freshman as well. And I don't love it, per se, but also he's not the quarterback. And you can tell based on how he plays that he works on his craft still. I mean, there's a lot of guys who work in the NFL that are not like obsessed 24/7 watching the film. So obviously it's something I wish he didn't say that. I wish it was the other way around. But tape speaks for itself. He's somebody who does work on his craft and has skills. So wide receiver doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, especially like I said, it wasn't just in the last couple of weeks that he said that.
No.
It just thinks that this is the video that starts circulating right before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure his agent has talked to him about it and be like, hey, make sure you don't say anything like this again. Teams are going to be calling about this. You have to show them that you can be that leader, the guy in the film room. And I'm not saying he has to be there and say, if everybody leaves, he's staying for another 2 hours watching film. I don't think you need to be that kind of guy to be successful in the NFL, unless you're a quarterback. I'd say quarterback, linebacker, just because a lot of times you have the green dot. You need to make sure you know where everybody's supposed to be, all those kind of things. But for wide receiver, a lot of times even the play call, you don't even have to know the whole play call. You can know just your section of the play call and be like, oh, yep, I know what I'm supposed to run here. So I'm not too worried about it. I agree. I think if he's there, I would have a hard time passing on him. Mikael Williams is another that I would love. I know he didn't test the best. I know he didn't have the best season, but I really think that injury just took him down. And if teams are a little bit worried about that with his ankle and his testing, if he falls to 20, I'd have a tough time just saying, nope, let's not take him. We do not have another edge player like him. Tillman has that size, but there's a reason that he's our fourth edge guy. Like we're talking about a guy that could become a true starter for you. He'd instantly, I think, be our best run defending edge player his rookie season. And that's something the Broncos need more of. I mean, you think about that Bills game, you think about the Ravens game, the edge guys were getting beat up. They were getting pushed back. And when the team falls behind, it really takes away the advantage our edge guys have of getting after the quarterback. And Vance Joseph as well. He can't be as creative in how he calls the game. So that would be another one. Like I said, Genty, if he falls there, I mean, we're not talking too realistic at that point. But it would be nice to see him with the Broncos.
Yeah, Mikael Williams is an interesting one because he has a lot of tape at 4i for that Georgia Bulldog defense. And while you mentioned he didn't test great, I don't think he tested bad. I mean, his 10-yard split of 161 is 90th percentile for edge rushers. Coming in at 260, 270, 34.4 arm length, 34.4 inch arm length. I mean, dude's got freaking, cranes out there. And he is a very interesting prospect. So if he fell 20s, I mean, obviously Shamar Stewart, as long as the character checks out, he's insane. Jalen Walker, even though I know that he's a little bit hybrid / tweener, that's always scary. The Broncos, obviously, I in my last mock published last Thursday, I mocked Jalen Walker to the Broncos at 20. I don't think he's going to get there, but they obviously are looking for pressure players. And as Drew Sanders, we'll see about him, but they're looking for that archetype of somebody who can do that. Maybe it's an Edgerrin Cooper role or a Caden Ellis. So Jalen Walker, and then people talk about him. He was the heartbeat, the engine, the whole personality of that Georgia defense. Everybody pulled the direction that he pulled, which I do think matters on the defensive side of the ball, especially. So Jalen Walker's another one. But again, it always comes down to what's being offered and what's available. Patrick's in the house. Aloha. Good to see you, Patrick. Great to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. Our favorite Lion coffee guy. Can't drink it this late, but do appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us all the same. We got William coming and says, from Perth, Australia, hope everyone's good. Trading back seems like a great idea. I think we should get some extra picks. The one thing I love about trading back and the Bill Barnwell's suggestion is that not only are you getting an additional top 100 pick, but you're getting that ammo where you can move back up. Now, I don't know if Amari Hampton's going to be at 20. I don't even know if I'm pro taking him at 20. Not against it. I'm just don't think it's a slam dunk, no doubt conversation. But at the same time, I think that between 20 and 51, we're going to see a running back run. I think the top of the second round, you're going to see a bunch of guys come off the board. So let's say you don't love Hampton at 20 or Genty and Hampton are gone. You move back from 20 to 26. it gives you that extra capital where then you can combine picks and easier move up to jump the Raiders/Bears, who are, we'll see. I mean, those might be the two teams that take Hampton and Genty before Denver can even pick. So you're not as worried about them then. But the ability to trade into the first 5 to 10 picks in the second round, hard to do with just 51, 85, and 122. I can't remember what the fourth round pick is. But if you get pick 90 as well, it doesn't hurt as bad to package 51 and 122 or 90, to get pick 35 overall. So trading back to give you extra assets and flexibility, that's something, depending on the board, I would be for.
Did you hear Spytech talk about Genty at pick 6?
Mm-mm.
Pretty much, he said his 10-year-old son told him, if you don't pick him, I will not be a Raiders fan.
Well,
and he goes, my son's really obsessed with fantasy football. Doesn't fully understand that that's not exactly how you build a team.
Yeah.
And so it kind of wavered back and forth of whether he's going Genty or not. And it'll be an interesting one to see which direction they're building towards. Do you build the offensive line? Do you add more to this defense? Or do you really just take that great blue chip playmaker at the running back position at 6?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough proposition. Greg Smith, good to see you. Greg, always coming in. Daniel Berry Sports, hope you're doing well. Appreciate you coming in. I did want to say hello. I think I saw Ernie Mays in here. Michael Latsky, hope you guys are having a great night. It's good now that you're hanging out with us. Appreciate you coming in. He says, what's Broncos' number one need? It's running back. Running back, another pass-catching weapon, more defensive line talent. I mean, those are the areas. I haven't written it up yet, but the ESPN and Jeff Legwold had Broncos needs, and he had running back. I think he had wide receivers, the other one, not tight end. And then his third need, which kind of caught me off guard. Here, the Broncos' third biggest need was cornerback because of unknown long-term health and everything with Riley Moss. So, I mean, I don't know. Riley Moss played great last season, but he's been hurt a lot. The Broncos would know a lot better with that. But if they have concerns about Riley Moss's long-term health / ability to stay healthy, that rockets cornerback up for me. But again, we're on the outside looking in on that one.
Yeah, and I'll say this with that, obviously running back is a huge need, but we got to remember, I've seen obviously lots of people pushing Omari and Hampton up there into that pick 20, and is it just because it's such a need that we've tried to talk ourselves into this guy being truly worth the top 20 pick, or is it that he really is just that kind of good of a player? You look at running back rankings right now, and other than Genty being at the top, the next 2 through 10, you're starting to see a lot more boards be very varied, where Hampton's not even the number 2 for a lot of people. I saw him as the number 10 on somebody's board here recently. I think you were sharing that.
That was Matt Waldman, who's entering I think it's his 15th or 20th year doing a draft guide. So, yeah. I mean, he does a lot specifically with the skills position guys. And Hampton's a heck of a back, but there's some concerns. Is he Najee Harris like type of player with the vision concerns? So he's a good back, and he's definitely on the table for 20, but it's not as I said earlier, it's just not an all no doubt slam dunk for me at this point. If they took him, I understand. I mean, getting back to George Payton's comments about the draft, saying that you can find backs rounds 2 through 6, but they are looking for, he did also add on to that there's not a lot of true 3 down backs. And Mike Kliss did a side session with him, and his big takeaway was looking for that running back 1A 3 down back, which kind of goes against what my original interpretation for Payton. Maybe some bias there, because I don't think you cornered into running back at 20 by any means, but it would be nice to have that 3 down guy. That said, Alvin Kamara wasn't thought of as a 3 down guy coming in. Reggie Bush, probably not a 3 down guy. Jahmyr Gibbs, not a 3 down guy, right, as well. So I don't know how much that matters for Sean Payton, but having the guys that can do a little bit of everything certainly helps, no doubt.
Yeah, you've got to definitely think, like you said, you got to have 2 running backs that can get out there and do multiple things. That your offense doesn't fall apart just depending on who's on the field. Or not fall apart, but be limited, I guess is a better way to say it. Where, teams can key in and say, oh, this running back's in. We know that guy's not going to go out on a pass, or we know he's not going to stay in and help block, so we can get after the quarterback. with these certain kind of blitz packages, those kind of things. You like those guys that can be multiple and really make a defense have to guess, okay, are they passing? Is he staying in to help with pass protection? Are they running it outside, inside? And those, obviously, it's hard to find those kind of running backs, but Sean Payton has done a pretty darn good job throughout his career finding running backs that fit that system and do well on the things that he asks them to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they talked about change of pace backs, the hammer as well. Denver has a change of pace with Jaleel. They have a hammer with Estime. We'll see about Beatty and Watson as well, but they need to add it back. They will add it back. I don't think it's back to net 20, but it could be. Excuse me. We got Matthew coming in saying hello. Hello to you, Matthew. Got our guy Papa Bear saying good evening, Broncos country. And let's get into it here, the specifics of it. So Bill Barnwell, a lot of different trades. And what did he write about the Broncos? He suggested Broncos trading back 20 to 26, also getting back pick 90 from the Rams. So he says the Broncos were being linked to tight ends and running backs earlier in the draft process, but tight end doesn't seem to be quite as concerning after the addition of veteran Evan Ingram in free agency. Instead of taking a running back here, it would probably behoove the Broncos to replenish the draft capital they lost as part of the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton deals over the past few years. While the Broncos are without a second-round pick as part of the Rams are without a second-round pick as part of last year's move up for Braden Fisk. They have an extra third-rounder they got from the Falcons high end Raheem Morris. With the Steelers picking at 21, this could be a prime spot for the Rams to move up for a quarterback, drafting the successor to Matthew Stafford, such as Jackson Dart, Ole Miss. So we'll definitely see what happens there. Broncos are in a weird spot at 20. It could be quarterback Jackson Dart. It could be wide receiver as well. Teams wanting to come up before picks 21 with the Steelers, 22 with the Chargers, 23 the Packers, all wide receiver teams. 25 also wide receiver team with the Texans. And it could be one of those teams late round 1, early round 2, wanting to come up from one of those offensive tackles. Also, I mean, man, a number of teams there at the end of the first round and beginning of the second round need an offensive tackle. So let's say Kelvin Banks slides. You have, the Ohio State guy's name who's escaping me right now. Josh Simmons. Yeah, exactly. Josh Connerly. So I could see, let's say the draft plays out where Patriots sitting there at 4. Abdul Carter falls to them. You're going to force a tackle there? You're going to take Abdul Carter. Well, you have to help Drake May still. Trade up. Go get one of those last remaining offensive tackles and get Carter plus Connerly. Something like that, which makes a lot of sense for the Patriots and the Broncos that end up getting an early second round pick with that. They could even trade back into the first round with the capital they get from that. So Denver's I think they should be on the table for trading back. That said, it's something Sean Payton has never done, or a Sean Payton-led team has never done, as long as he's been the head coach for a team in the first round.
Yeah, but he's also never had a GM like George Payton until he came to Denver. You kind of saw when he was with the Saints, he and his GM were almost too much alike, I think, with their crazy spending, the aggressiveness in the draft. And, they usually nailed, when they traded up, usually it was a pretty darn good player. So I'm not trying to discount that, but George Payton comes from the Vikings, who would have 14, 15 picks in a draft because they always traded back and got that extra capital. So I think those two can really balance each other out, and he could maybe talk him into, hey, we really like Henderson, but maybe not at 20. We know we can trade back to 34, where I don't know where the Patriots are at there in the second. I think it's 34, 35, somewhere in there. And we can trade back there, get this extra draft picks, and still get Henderson, who you can have as your running back that you can do so many things with. And then we've got this extra that we can then keep building every other part of our team. I could see Sean Payton being talked into that, as long as he knows we're not going to lose the guy I really want. I mean, obviously that you're taking a chance with it, but I think George Payton could just show him, hey, this is how we can really rebuild our team. We're going to be paying all these other guys very soon. Zach Allen's going to get a big contract. JFM might be getting a contract. We don't exactly know for sure. Bonito needs a contract. So we need these draft picks to really help balance that out for our roster.
Yeah, I'm with you, especially in this class. It always depends on how the board falls at 20. And if they love a guy, swing. of course. And I know it's kind of like the tap the sign thing, like everybody wants to trade back, but it always takes two to tango. So the hypotheticals we're talking here, it would be nice. One thing I will add here, just a little bit of, granted the sample size is so small, doesn't mean anything. I don't know, but the absolutely horrific Saints trade up that we saw was the draft after Sean Payton left the Saints organization. So Sean Payton left after the conclusion of the 2021 season. And in 2022, you had the now notorious New Orleans, but championship building for the Eagles trade where the Saints traded up. They gave up, they got 16 and 19, so 2 picks for the Eagles, but they also gave up a future first round pick and a future second round pick. That future first round pick ends up, so the Eagles get 18. That future first round pick ends up being Jalen Carter. That future second round pick ends up being Cooper DeJean. I mean, 2 of the pillars of that Eagles team and defense this season. So there was a trade up, obviously multiple first round picks exchanged there, but it wasn't, that was after Sean Payton went. That was Mickey Loomis / Dennis Allen regime. So, I mean, again, one trade, one example. Does that have an indication? I think it means that it isn't all Sean Payton.
Yeah, like I said, I think Loomis, because we've seen the same things continue after Sean Payton left to even a greater degree. Like they were in cap trouble before Sean Payton left. They are in no man's land where they're having to figure out how do we get $80 million over the cap? How do we get back to being legal compared to all the other teams? And then we still go out and spend ridiculous money. We still go sign a Justin Reed to a big contract. You know, they won't just have that year where they say, hey, you know what? We just got to throw our hands up a little bit. We got to get things back in order, and then we'll really rebuild this team. He just refuses to do that. And like I said, the trades have gotten a little bit more out of hand. So I think Loomis might be showing that he's a bigger part of why that was happening, because we haven't seen it here in Denver. You think about how much Sean Payton loved Bo Nix last year. And there was a lot of like him like calling the teams ahead of them going, hey, who are you taking? Who, like, just really, like, he was really worried about it, but he still held true and said, you know what, we'll wait till 12. I'm willing to hold off, trusting that we know how this sport's going to break and that we're going to be able to get our guy.
Yeah. And to that point about trading back, we had George Payton make a comment during the interview at the owners meeting, stating specifically that I don't hit up Sean for the trade back until the day of the draft. There's just no use. Kind of laughs in there as well. So, you know, when it happens and it's presented, we have that ability, of course. And George Payton also talked about going through scenarios. So the Broncos will talk about scenarios of trade backs and what that could look like, just because, you know, it's an option for them, especially in this draft class where they pick at 20. This is the first time in a while when the Broncos had a first round pick that hasn't been top 15 or higher. So that's, I guess they did technically have the late first round pick that they ended up trading for Sean Payton, but that wasn't theirs all the same. But Broncos will go through scenarios and it'll be interesting. And the other fact here is I think that you can trade up. It just costs a lot less if you trade up day 2. And we've seen the Broncos do that now. That's, again, small sample size, but in 2 drafts of the Sean Payton, George Payton regime, we've had 2 trades up day 2. And if you want to kind of cheat, a trade up to the second pick in day 3, which is almost day 2, right? That you had Troy Franklin trade up last season, and in the draft before, you had them trade up to the last pick of the second round for Marvin Mims, and also trade up future top 100 capital, which I didn't love, but trade up future top 100 capital and a third round pick, I believe, to go get. Actually, it might have been a 4th round pick to go get Riley Moss, which in hindsight looks pretty good. So maybe that's something that, you know, how we can go get up those guys. Well, maybe you can use those that aggression and targeted players day 2 instead, and it costs, 20% of the capital it would have moving up in the first round.
Yeah, and especially in this draft, when I can't remember who was talking about it today, but they were like, yeah, I've talked to a lot of teams. They view there's only like 6 true blue chip players. If I'm trading up in the first, it's for one of those guys. If it's not one of the blue chip guys, then I'm sorry. It's better just to stay at 20. I don't think there's this drop off from a guy that you can get at 8 to the guy that you can get at 20. Possible. I mean, it depends who's still there, obviously, but if Tyler Warren makes it to like pick 15, I could maybe get on board with the trade up. I'm not big on trading up for tight end, but he's not just a tight. There's some extra things that you can do with him that you couldn't do with other tight ends. So that kind of move, like I said, if Genty falls past 12, maybe you have a little bit of that conversation, but just the cost to trade up, you have to think of it. Is it worth our second round pick? Where you could get, let's say we get Hampton at 20 and 51, you go get Mason Taylor. Is Genty worth both of those guys?
Oh, man. I think Genty is better, but probability speaking for a running back that's had that many carries, it's just my analytical side says that's really risky to do.
Yeah.
I'd rather cast the dice twice with two guys than one, even though I don't think Hampton at 20 is a absolute home run pick. Personally, again, fine. Kind of like he's in the tier with like Egbuka or Matthew Golden for me there. I think I like Egbuka a bit more just because the floor is higher, because like wide receivers get paid unbelievable money. Like from a financial ROI, wide receiver 2 is more valuable on the open market than most running back ones, right? The wide receiver 20 compared to, let's do wide receiver 40 compared to running back 20. Like wide receiver 40 is probably making more money, but it's just a much narrower scope to hit on that pick. But I digress. Michael asks, what's my thoughts on Iowa running back Caleb Johnson? Well, he made Iowa offense enjoyable to watch for the first time in, since Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson were there. So that was great. I really liked that about him. I wish he tested a little better, but man, he's got such good feet, fast feet, despite his upright running style. He's got very good control, and he's got really good second and third level vision, if that makes sense. He kind of can see where the blocks are set up, and because of that, even though he's not always, blazing through guys, he sets it up really well to still get a lot of breakaway runs. I think he was second in college football last season in runs of 15 plus yards, despite, really bad 10-yard split. Now, granted, Iowa's offensive line did a really good job this past season. They're a really cohesive unit. Finally, for the first time in a while, they had that. It's been a bit since Tristan Wirfs and Alec Jackson and Tyler Linderbaum were there. But yeah, I think Caleb Johnson, pick 51 is fine. I know that there's been some talk about like round 1 with him even. There's not enough pass weaponry for him for me to say that. Right, and it's not totally his fault because Iowa didn't use him that way. Why would you when you have the pass game that Iowa had? Like, don't throw the ball, just run it. That quarterback was god-awful. But we just don't know about him in pass protection and third down and the ability to be a pass catcher for me to warrant the 20th overall pick for him. Unless he tested like Adrian Peterson, but he didn't.
Yeah, like I said, there's some things to the picture for him that we just don't have. And so there's projection that you've got to make. And I mean, I think he could be a good receiver. I think he could figure that out. And I think he would be a really good fit here in the Broncos offense. Cause like you said, he's got that vision. Broncos last year, I think had the 4th fewest 20+ yard runs in the NFL. They only had 4 that went beyond it's 15 or 20 yards. I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Does this include quarterbacks and wide receivers? Because if it was
just running
backs. Okay, all right.
I think it's just running backs.
I was gonna say it's even worse if it's just running backs.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. But anyway, the fact, like I said, this guy, he can take a shorter run and turn it into something bigger for you. And I don't think him just being in a very zone-heavy offense hurts his ability to run in the gap. That ability to change your eyes where you're looking and trying to figure out where the hole's going to open up. Like I said, the bigger ability is when you can see that second level, because the first level, like you can watch it and see how it's blocking up, but to have that instinct to know, hey, now that everybody's flowing this way, now I can cut back this way and everything's going to be open to that side of the field. That there's something amazing about that. And like I said, he made Iowa offense fun to watch. There's been times where I've had to watch Iowa players on offense, and I'm going, I'm about to fall asleep. It just, you might watch some offensive linemen just trying to find that good player from them, since they've always done pretty well of developing a good offensive lineman. So the fact that he could do that, especially against loaded boxes, everybody knew Iowa's going to run the football, and he still turned it into a positive thing. So it's part him, part offensive line. And talking about positive, we got Eric Flynn coming with some stars. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate you tuning in and being a part of this. And so, yeah, good question on Johnson. There's just so many good running backs, and it really is kind of a flavor thing. Everybody's going to have their different guys that they like. I know, like our friend Eric, he really loves Dylan Sampson. Some people don't like him. Some people really love Hampton. Others are like, nope, he's probably about the 10th best running back in this class. So Henderson, some people really love him. Others are like, well, you got the medicals. He didn't have can he be a 200, 250 plus carry kind of guy in the NFL? Can you do that with him? Can he handle that? We don't know. Judkins, again, kind of that same question. If he was in a partnership there, can he be a true number one for you? His ability to yards after contact, he was a little bit lower than some of these top guys. So all of these guys have a little bit of questions, and it just really depends. How can you see them working in your offense?
Yeah, that was, you're right. And Eric, thank you so much for the stars here. Of course, really do appreciate you coming in here. Just trying to think of other running. I mean, gosh, both Ohio State guys. Giddens is getting the guys who have really seems like now that the NFL combine's coming on, pro days have come on. You have a lot of people talking to media and whatnot. And the finalization of boards is coming up here. Now pro days slow down, but two running backs I think that have really risen through recently with the media catching up to the league is DJ Giddens, Kansas State. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's off the board late round 2, mid round 2, and Damian Martinez, Miami's running back as well, who's somebody that I think late day 2 or late round 2 to mid round 3 is also very possible. So talented class. We'll see how it falls, how the board falls, but we'll see what happens. Michael comes in and says, would you take Simmons back? No, after paying Talanoa Hufanga, probably doesn't make a lot of sense for the Broncos to sink money into the safety position. Although Simmons, great player and appreciate his time in Denver, but probably not. So keeping it going here, ESPN did mention that the Broncos, Matt Bowen, who does good work, he has an Iowa Hawkeye connection too, but he said that the perfect fit for the Broncos is Teteroa McMillan, the wide receiver from Ohio State. He mentioned linking Teteroa McMillan to such players as Marquise Colston of Sean Payton's era, as well as, of course, Michael Thomas. So these big body players who can do the big slot work, big catch radius player, and gives Denver somebody who can do some contested catch stuff, do dirty work over the middle of the field, the big overs. God, how many big overs have we seen from Cortland Sutton in this offense? That's been his go-to. Hopefully not 141 targets worth next season. I'd love to spread the ball around a little bit more, but McMillan makes sense. And again, you got 3 young guys who are you can really like Vele, Franklin, and Mims. Do any of them project as wide receiver 1s though in the NFL? God, man, that's a stretch for me. You can like them and be good, useful players, but build the offense around, funnel the ball to wide receivers. I think I would take the no on that. And then you have Cortland Sutton, last year of contract, going to be 30 years old. Who knows there? It sounds like good faith stuff, they're working on getting him. But even then, he's getting older. It could hit them. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins was just 31 this year. Did DeAndre Hopkins look like DeAndre Hopkins? No, did not. So we'll see there. But Teteroa McMillan, I mean, I know you're the wide receiver guy. He's my wide receiver, besides Travis Hunter. He's my wide receiver 1 for Denver. It still is. Give me the big guy, physical uniqueness, rareness. Give me big, strong players.
So, yeah, a few things stuck out to me, and I want to make sure, just so we don't upset Michael here. Arizona, you said Ohio State.
Excuse me. I got Ohio State on the brain because there's so many good Ohio
we got to make sure we got our Arizona guy. No, I love him. You know me. I'm usually kind of that. how do they win in that first 2 to 3 yards? The route runners, those are always my favorite. And he's a little bit of a long strider, so he's not always going to win with the quickness right off the snap. I think there's going to be a little bit of trouble early on with the press coverage. You saw it a little bit in college. Teams started pressing him a little bit more. But beyond that, I think there's two qualities that are very underrated for him. Yards after catch. Like there's something he'll be doing a slant route or a deep in or something like that. And he'll have a defender trying to catch up on his back pocket, and he'll catch it and just stop on a dime, turn and run to open field. And the defender just has no chance at all. He did that over and over and over again. And it's just kind of one of his favorite things to do, knowing a defender's got full speed going, trying to catch up to him and doesn't know that he's going to stop like that. And so that ability, even like they threw a lot of screen passes to a guy that's a long strider. He can break tackles. He can, like I said, he picks up the hard yards. And then the other big thing, and this is part of what makes him so good at making the tough catches. He knows how to use his body to, I guess you'd say, like box out a defender. And then he's such a great hands catcher. Like his hands are fully extended out to give him the space to operate, where a defender can't just knock it down. You see some of these really big receivers and you're like, man, why aren't they better at the jump ball catches? Well, it's because they're waiting for the ball to get into their body. He's not that kind of guy. Like he's a very natural hands catcher. Now he will drop a few just because he's trying to do too much. I think that's partly just because Arizona didn't really have a whole lot other than him, especially this last year. You look at, I think he had like 140 targets this past year. The next guy was like 60. I think that's pretty close to what it was. So they really leaned into him. So he's going to have a few drops along the way. And he's just going to have to learn here in Denver. Like you don't have to do everything. Don't overdo, make the play that's there. And I think if he can get used to that, I think he could really turn into a really great number 2 for his rookie season. And like I said, eventually could become that number 1. And I really like the idea of pairing a young quarterback with a young receiver that they can grow together. You think of Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase. Like I know that they went to the same college, but for the NFL, that was a bigger deal to have that go-to guy that he could really lean into. And you think of Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, like he just always had that guy. He knew this guy's going to be open when I really need him to. And I mean, he had Travis Kelce too, so that kind of helps. But so to get a McMillan, hey, I can throw it up. It's third down. Yes, he might be covered, but I'm going to go trust my guy to go make the play.
Yeah. And just like the archetype that Sean Payton's gone for, right? I mean, he's liked some stretchers, but you think Franklin can play that role. Mims showed a little bit more with that role as well. And somebody big. I mean, they tried it with Josh Reynolds. I don't know. McMillan's falling. I could see a team like the Packers trying to trade up to like 19 or something to go get him before he's on the available for Denver, because they really need an X on that team. Like desperately, they need an X, but we'll see what happens. So now we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon. But like I promised, we're going to do a mock where we actually project the trade back that the Bill Barnwell was projected there. So let me pull it up here for everybody, because this is great live television. So the trade again was the Broncos moving back from 20 to 26 with the Rams and getting also pick 90 in return. So we'll be on the board at pick 26 instead. Let me know if you guys can see that. We'll get it going here and we'll force the trade. So here we are, pick 20. I think I'm going to, there we go. Pick 20. Buka gone, Jalen Walker gone, Walter Nolan gone, Golden gone, Johnson, Barron, Hunter, Felt, crazy. This is a crazy one, but that's okay. We kind of get it in the aggregate still. Malachi Stark's there, Burden, not a good board. Pierce, Grant is interesting. Hampton's still there, Loveland, Michael Williams, Harmon. There's still players available. Well, guess what? We're going to trade back just like our guy Barnwell suggested, 26 to 20. We're going to get ourselves pick 26 and 90 for 20. They're not interested. Well, guess what? Barnwell said it's going to happen. So there we go. Trade accepted. God bless you. Here we are. Pick. Kenneth Grant goes right before Starks goes. Michael goes. This is one that's a little bit too bad for the Broncos. I was hoping for maybe Michael Williams or Grant there, but still, we got some guys available. That's fine. So where are you thinking here? Luther Burden, Omarion Hampton, Colston Loveland, Derek Harmon. Interesting. I think that's probably the cutoff for me for first round guys. So, I mean, Nick Amanda is still available too. He's interesting, no doubt. We could go Gray Zabel. That would be a different one. Where are you thinking?
I'm leaning towards Derek Harmon.
Okay.
Getting a guy that just that defensive line. I think was it Sean Payton talked about that of like adding to a strength is not a bad thing in the NFL. And especially when you've got so many guys coming up that are going to be possibly free agents. I think he is incredible at getting after the quarterback. I think he's underrated, helping out in the run game. And I feel like there's running backs in the second round that I still really am going to love. There's tight ends that are still there. I'm not sure that there's another defensive lineman that's going to make it to 51 that can do what Derek Harmon does.
Yeah. So right after that pick, Colston Loveland came to the Chiefs. That's too bad. Hampton to the Commanders. That's pretty fun. There goes Caleb Johnson above that. So I turn out the randomness on this board because why not? We like random. So we got for the Broncos now at 50 running backs. You still got Judkins, Sampson. Henderson seems like the obvious pick here for the Broncos. We don't have to do that though. Harvey, Giddens. And also I know you're a big fan of Mason Taylor. Is he still around? You got Mason Taylor here as well. So other big guys. I love Demetrius Knight. He's really interesting. Jaden Higgins. We haven't gone wide receiver. He's fun. We can take off defensive tackle probably maybe a little bit later. But where are you thinking here? Are we going to do the Henderson pick just because that's the one that makes sense?
It does. I mean, it just seems crazy how good of a fit he would be in a Sean Payton offense.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Higgins right before our pick.
Mason Taylor probably for the I know it's the fantasy draft, but Savion Williams is really interesting for the Broncos. I mean, you could pair Damian Martinez with them as well, or Giddens. We could go back-to-back running back, but I think the one that makes sense here is probably Mason Taylor.
Yeah, he's gonna go much higher than this in the actual draft. I feel there's talk of him climbing into the first round right now.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of teams that really love him. He's got a high floor. He's got the family lineage behind him as well. Really came on at the end of this last season, has the athleticism, can play all over the tight end position, inline, slot, off, whatever you need him to do, he can do. So I think that's a great pick for the Broncos.
So we're on the board here again. We could get, honestly, running back or wide receiver. I mean, Savion Williams is really interesting here. He feels like a little bit of a luxury, but with that extra pick we got from trading back, I mean, you want to talk about a joker guy. He's 6'5", crazy athlete. And then we talked about wide receiver earlier, getting an X. There's not many X's in this class. Trey Harris is actually an X. And I know he's a little older, but he's been a really good player for Ole Miss. I think this spot is almost too good of value to bypass him.
I would agree. I think he's hurt by the Ole Miss offense. They didn't have him do a whole lot. So there's going to be some projection with his game, but you see all the tools that you want just from an athletic standpoint. He has some of the craziest catches you'll see in college football. And he has that attitude of it's my ball. And that's what you love to see out of a true X receiver. So I'm willing to do that because especially if you have Sutton here this year, like he's not a guy. Trey Harris isn't a guy that's going to be ready year one to be a 1,000-yard receiver for you. He needs a year, but you put him behind Sutton and say, hey, learn from this guy. Watch how he runs routes. Watch how he, watches film, all those kind of things. I think that would be a great one.
Yeah, I see the chat now. I've been over on the other page, but I see some Loveland call here for that pick. Loveland would have been interesting, but then we wouldn't have gotten a steal with Mason Taylor.
Yeah.
So we're on the board here. I did the fourth round because I think it makes sense to do. I'm going to override you. I'm not going to override you. I'm going to give you two options here, but I'm going to override the position. We're going to go edge here.
Okay.
We had Mike Kliss put out an article on Sunday that the Broncos, after he talked about Broncos and their checking in on the temperature for wide receivers, Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp, he mentioned that don't be surprised if the Broncos go edge sometime, and he talked about day 2 or day 3 to add to the room. I think Ashton Gelati from Louisville and Femi Oladejo from UCLA are both unbelievable values here for what they are as players. If we didn't go with a speed back early, let's say like we went with Quinshon Judkins instead because Henderson was gone, I think adding Jaden Blue or Tootin would make a lot of sense for the Broncos. Brashard Smith also a little early. I don't think he's as explosive as those guys, but I want to go between Gelati or Oladejo here.
I would vote for Oladejo. I really think he's just beginning to scratch the surface of what he could be. He's a nice developmental player. I think he could become a nice, at least rotational player, but I think he has that ability to become a true starter.
Yep. Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Save this mock. Every single one of these players we took goes well before when we took them, I think, unless there's something else that comes out. But that's the simulator is a simulator. That's one reason that I did the randomness hire. Didn't think we'd get each of these guys, but this is pretty good overall. Yeah, no safety. Well, guess what? 5 picks and more than those positions. So it didn't work out that way, but it's on the board. I definitely considered Makuba. But yeah, overall, I mean, if this was the Broncos draft, I'd be like frothing at the mouth. I don't even know what to say. Like this is one reason that simulators sometimes I don't use simulators when I do my actual mocks because sometimes you get stuff like this. So I mean, this would be amazing.
Henderson making it to 51. Like I said, it was a no-brainer. The fact that they give you a C for taking a guy that's probably going to go in the top 40 at 51. Mason Taylor, like I said, there's a lot of talk of him going first round and getting them there in the third. And Trey Harris, like your offense just got remarkably athletic by adding these 3 guys. And if they can really figure it out as football players, which I wholeheartedly believe with this coaching staff that they'll get the most out of these guys, I'd be very excited about that. And Derek Harmon added to the defensive line. I mean, he could be a starter day one for you, but the fact that he's going to probably be your 4th man coming down, I mean, teams would just be like, this sucks. Like we don't get a break when Zach Allen goes off the field because Derek Harmon's coming and clogging things up or getting after the quarterback, whatever it may be. I mean, that'd just be huge value for the Broncos at pick 26.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can top this one for me. I mean, defensive line round 1 value, still get my favorite fit for running back, get a really good young tight end, get an X, and get a edge who has some coverage ability too. I mean, this is ridiculous. It should be in the top 1% of Broncos drafts, but the board is the board that they use. So a lot of fun. I'm going to save that one and put it on twitter.com here. So you guys let me know what you think on that. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up. Going to get on out of here. Appreciate everyone. Thanks for dealing with me being here a little bit late. Wife getting in from a flight, so I had to be a little flexible, and I appreciate Carl, Scott, and all you guys with that. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. Carl's at Carl Dumler, MHH. I'm at Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle over at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says there underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. Shout out to our star givers today, Michael Ronquillo, Shiloh, of course, Troy Boer. Appreciate you. Papa Bear coming in there. Eric Flynn as well. You guys have a great rest of your day. Any elevator pitch final thoughts here, Carl?
No, like I said, I'd be happy as can be if that's exactly how things went. Glad that the board fell just, I would say almost perfectly for us there.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah, scrolling down. I mean, the one that was the hardest pick was probably the first pick, but after that, and the last one, but like options every single spot. So a lot of fun. We'll post that one on Twitter. You guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you again tomorrow morning. We're going to have Cody Alexander join the show tomorrow morning to talk about the Broncos defense and the pieces they've added, if they can replicate last season, Patrick Surtain just being a unicorn, and maybe some first round defensive prospects as well, early round defensive prospects. So a lot of fun. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Choose compassion and kindness. Go Broncos.